If you think of how many groups or how many meetings you've been a part of over the past month or so, you begin to get a sense of how much communication actually happens in small group settings, and therefore how important it is to be able to have these interactions be effective and satisfying. There's nothing worse than spending a lot of time in a meeting or group setting and feeling at the end that either it was a waste of time or you feel worse than before the interaction started. In my own case, since it is summer, I don't have as many meetings or small group interaction as I do during the school year. But I coordinate the dive team my daughter is on at our summer swim club, so I have a meeting on Sunday for that. That's a group of volunteers. I have had 3 requests this week to set up meetings over the next couple of weeks that concern work and decisions that need to be made prior to school starting. Those would be with my colleagues at Thomas More that I work with regularly. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be attending a 3-day workshop on critical thinking. And this will be a group of people, some of whom I probably know a bit, and some of whom I don't really know very well at all. But I suspect that after the 3 days together, we will have a new bond that will impact my life in some way, but I'm not sure exactly how. And Friday night, I'm meeting with my 4 sisters for our monthly meet and eat, where we get together and catch up on everything that's going on in each other's family. Those gatherings can be both very satisfying and supportive at times, but there are times when as a family we get into some discussions that result in a lot of mixed feelings. I'm sure you can look back at your past month or the month ahead of you and begin to see the different small groups you are a part of. Understanding how these groups function and how you function in those groups should help you develop more satisfying and effective experiences. In the chapter that we're looking at, in chapter 1, there are a number of main ideas covered, but I would like to focus on just a couple of them. For instance, I'd like to talk a little bit about what small group is and small group communication and the impact of technology on that. Touch on some ideas about ethical issues in groups, and discuss the participant observer perspective, which you guys will all be utilizing in this course. So if we think about what a small group is, one of the main things that happen in small groups is that people are interdependent and they influence each other. Let's think for a moment about those two things. It's important to realize that what you do or don't do and how you do it in this course and in real life has an impact on the other people in your group. This is interdependence. The grade each of you get in this course is dependent upon the contribution each of you make. Now, that's a little different than influence. Influence means you are each in a position to impact how others in your group think, how they feel about things. You're in a position to persuade people to support your ideas or agree to the timeline or process that you propose. You can impact the way others think about things like communication, responsibility, teamwork, and they can impact the way you think. So it makes things a bit more interesting when you consider that you're not only responsible for impacting each other's grade, in this case, or each other's reputation in the case of real work situations, but you'll also be influencing the way others in the group think. For instance, in your group project in this course, you are going to recommend some ideas for some new communication courses. You may be thinking of the word course as meaning a class where instructors share information and require assignments and students take in the information and turn in assignments. What if someone in your group proposes that the idea of course could mean many different things? Internships, co-ops, work experience, volunteer work, research, other things. You might find yourself saying, I never thought about a course being any of those things. That does change the way we could approach this project. So now the way you think about course has changed through group discussion. This is one of the great values of group discussion. It opens us up to new ways of thinking. Related to the idea of influence is the idea that through communication, ideas come to have meaning for us. I'm continually reminded of this by my 10-year-old. Daily, she asks me to explain what something means to her. She just went for her annual checkup and got her tetanus shot. What's a tetanus shot? She asked me. Why do I have to get it? This leads to a series of interactions that involve the idea of the possibility of her getting hurt at camp next week, getting an infection, these sorts of things. So she says, if I get hurt, I could get an infection? Would I have to go to the hospital? And the questions and answers continued. I realize as I'm talking to her that she's trying to form some meaning for this idea of tetanus shot. And how I explain it to her will forever impact how she thinks about tetanus shots. That's sort of an awesome responsibility. And it's no different in the groups we belong to. Together we discuss ideas and our goals and end products. They come to have meaning based on those discussions. That meaning can have positive and negative elements to it, and it can have a lasting impact. For instance, just saying the words group project probably brings up all kinds of thoughts and emotions in each of you based on the meaning you already have for this idea. Some of them are negative and some of them are positive. One of the most interesting developments in group interaction is how technology is impacting it. This course provides a great situation where you'll have to work in a virtual environment. This is the primary way things will get accomplished in the future. So if you're not on board yet, it's time to get there. We will talk about this more in other chapters, but one of the most interesting things that has been discovered about the use of technology is that people are still able to enhance the verbal aspects of communication so that they serve to communicate some things that are normally communicated through the nonverbal channels. And they can form deep, lasting relationships with others without ever meeting face to face. Although mediated forms of communication lack what we call social presence, you're never together in the same place interacting, it seems that people adapt to whatever form of communication is available. For instance, before the telephone was even a reality, people primarily communicated long distance through letter writing. Deep, lasting relationships developed through this form of communication. Although people could not see a person's actions, they could not hear each other. Emotions and personality were still communicated through the writing. The use of the telephone next enabled people to hear the tone of voice, although they could not see a person's action, but relationships still developed and emotions and personality were communicated. The same has happened for mediated communication. Whether we are texting, emailing, or teleconferencing, we have found ways to convey tone, emotion, and personality, even if nonverbal communication channels are limited or unavailable. I think some of you have taken several of these online courses together, but have never met in person, have already developed relationships, and you've definitely conveyed your emotions and personality to the others in the courses. Working on a project together in this course should enhance those relationships. Some research on mediated communication also shows that people tend to express themselves more directly and in shorter bursts, which can lead to misinterpretations and hurt feelings. In addition, some people tend to have higher expectations of their teammates. Once an email or text is sent, people expect an immediate response. But at the same time, people feel it's easier to ignore their responsibilities because they don't have to face the person. They simply disregard the text or email, delay responding, or claim that some technical foul-up caused them not to receive the message or not be able to respond. These bring up ethical issues that groups sometimes struggle with. In your own group in this course, you might want to establish some guidelines for communication. For instance, what will be your expectations about answering messages from each other? If someone in the group is unhappy about something, how should he or she address that with the rest of the group? If someone in the group does not contribute significantly to the project or doesn't fulfill their responsibilities, how will the group handle this? During this course, you will be a participant observer. You'll be participating in a group while you're reflecting upon and studying that group. Since all of you are in this role, as the group develops, you should be able to use this opportunity to kind of depersonalize the group process a bit. By this, I mean you will be able as a group to discuss the group process in terms of course concepts as your group is developing. This should help you be able to interpret things that happen more in terms of group process concepts rather than making judgments about individuals, which tends to be the more natural response to group struggles. For instance, we are learning that each group member brings their own history to the group, which includes their feelings about past groups they've been a part of and their thoughts about the possibilities of this group being successful or unsuccessful. Since we all know that this happens, when people express concerns in the early stages of the group process, someone in the group should be able to respond to the person with these concerns with something like, sounds like you have had some difficulties in past groups you've been a part of, so I can see why you'd have some concerns. Our text says that's pretty natural. Hopefully this experience will be better for you, but why don't we all share any concerns we have so that we can support each other better as the project goes on? Responding to group members' concerns like this in terms of the concepts we're studying should discourage you from concluding that someone is simply a negative person, lazy, disorganized, or something like that. In summary, working in a small group or team should produce more ideas, more creative options, more workable solutions, and better awareness of potential pitfalls. But to get these benefits, the process may take more time than if you worked on it individually, and it might require that you make some adjustments to your thinking and adjustments to the way you're used to doing things. So try to keep your mind open, but be aware, we only have 6 weeks, and the goal, the final project, needs to be completed by that time.